Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Game Design Archive with Edward and Ludwig.
Hello.
Today, we're gonna talk about flow.
Yes.
Yes.
So, flow is a topic in game design that gets discussed a lot, as are many topics. And I want to start off by sort of defining it. And it's kind of a bit fussy and iffy because like everyone has different interpretations of what exactly flow is and whatever. But essentially, when people talk about flow, most of the time they talk about this like, I guess as the kids would call it nowadays, locked in state that you kind of get into when you're like doing very well in a game and like everything's just going the right way and like you're on fire, you know. Very many like young terms here used by me today, but you get the point. It's like you're doing exceptionally well, and you're like in a different state of mind. You're like completely connected with the game or whatever.
Yeah, it's technically a term not from gaming, right? It's from like psychology or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like general flow state. So it's like it does have a, I guess, more clear definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm actually not sure what the exact...
No, not the exact, but it's like... I think like, if I remember correctly, should probably have checked this beforehand, like we say every time, but it was a study where they studied people that are really good at things.
Ah, okay.
Right. So it's like, when are the like people that are good at whatever they're good at, the most productive, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And it was like, then they came up with this flow thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I could be completely wrong now.
Yeah, you could be spreading misinformation, but
but I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But of course, that's like different from game design flow. Or well, it's the same thing but applied to games, I guess.
Yeah.
And the point we kind of want to make here today is that a lot of people who are good at game design, in our opinion, tend to be very anti-flow. And it's for an understandable reason. But I'm kind of the opinion that it's like possible to make a game using the like flow state framework or whatever you want to call it. The problem with the flow state framework...
So?
Yeah.
Okay.
The problem with the flow state framework is how most people interpret it, if that makes sense. Yeah, so it's like, what I'm trying to say is that if a good designer tried to design a game from like a flow state perspective or whatever, they could make a good game. The problem is that the designers that are trying to make games around the flow state aren't good enough to do it, and they don't understand what actually causes flow state and stuff like that.
But wouldn't you say that it's a... Because like in my mind, I'm thinking that's a very bad way to design games. Like obviously, if someone is good at designing games, right, they can make a good game. So I'm not gonna... I don't disagree with that part, but it seems to me, but maybe you have a more like better idea of, or better, how should I say, better opinion, I guess, or more thought out opinion about it. But in my mind, it's just a very bad framework to design around at all. Like it shouldn't be considered, really, I think.
I think the problem
like
is...
it's a... Sorry, just one more thing.
Go ahead.
Like it's not... like I'm not saying flow is bad, right? Obviously. I'm just saying designing around flow is bad, right? Is how I'm thinking, but go ahead.
Maybe I'll go into concrete examples, and maybe what I'm trying to say will make more sense. Because I do have a concrete example. And one of the like typical... what do I want to call it? Like one of the typical pieces of advice that people who are into like flow-based design say is they talk about this like optimal flow difficulty curve or whatever you want to call it, where it's like the game is always trying to like keep the difficulty at like the edge of the player's ability, so that they're always like always almost losing, but they never actually lose, right? It's like they're always at the edge of losing,
Yep.
but never actually get there. And there's two very, very big problems with this idea. And the first one is that it's like what actually ends up happening when you design in that way is that you get a kind of brain dead game. Because if you're never losing, you're never actually challenged to the extent of your abilities, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if we take a Dark Souls boss, for example, right?
Yeah.
It's not, how would you say this? It's like if you don't die at least a few times, then you aren't actually challenged, right? If you like if you scrape by like with like 10% health left or whatever, like that wasn't really a hard fight. You need to like have to do it several times for it to actually be perceived as challenging, like in the brain, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I want to add. Can I add one thing to that? Right. So I think there like I'm thinking there might be like a distinction here, right? So like the thing you described, right, where there is no challenge, right? It's like just on the edge of your capabilities or whatever, right, all the time. I'm not sure that actually produces real flow, if that makes sense.
No. Yes.
I think it produces something like some fake flow thing, right?
I don't even think
that
it
designers
does that.
think that like I think it's closer to the like addiction stuff, right? That we talked about, like the keeping going, or maybe it doesn't work actually. Maybe it's just like the other addicting mechanics, like the grind and stuff that keeps people going. I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that like this idea that you should like always be close to losing but never actually lose, that's like a misunderstanding of something that isn't necessarily wrong, which is that like, well, maybe it is necessarily wrong actually, because the thing that I'm trying to argue here is that to end up in flow, you need to first make the game too hard. That's sort of my point. Like for like at least for me, when I've experienced flow playing video games, it's always in a video game that's been way too hard for me at first, and then I've gotten like better and better and better, and then all of a sudden I do like this perfect run where nothing goes wrong, and I'm like on fire. I'm hitting all the parries, I'm dodging all the attacks, whatever, you know, and like everything's going perfectly.
Yeah.
And in order for that to feel satisfying and good and feel flowy, you need to first have experienced the opposite of flow, right? You need to have first experienced like your flow constantly being disrupted for flow to be satisfying, if that makes sense.
It does, but it's also relative, right?
What do you mean?
So like I do think like your skill level affects it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe like maybe I'm trying to think of a good. Let's use Dark Souls, our favorite example again, because why not? Someone that's like doing a bunch of challenge runs where they like do everything without getting hit or something, right?
Yeah.
They probably know the game well enough to like not really have to engage with the game.
Yeah.
If they just do a normal run, right? Whereas someone that, you know, maybe it's the first time they're playing or a second time or something, right?
Yeah.
They will reach the quotation marks flow state, right? Because they're not as good, right?
Yeah.
I think so like that part of the assessment of flow I don't think is incorrect, like you want to keep them on the edge of their capabilities, right? Because that is where you find it, right? It's like when you have to actually try but you can do it, right?
Yeah.
As soon as you can't do it, then flow breaks, right?
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is...
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so like, what I'm trying to say is that in order for me to actually reach flow in the first state, I need to have struggled first. Like, the game needs to have been too hard, and then my ability needs to have, like, caught up with the difficulty curve, right? If that makes sense.
But it doesn't have to have been in that game necessarily, right?
What do you mean?
Like, if you play Dark Souls once, and then you play Dark Souls 2 or something,
yeah,
then you can probably reach flow in Dark Souls 2, right?
Yeah, of
Based
course.
on your
Like,
skills from Dark Souls 1, right? So it doesn't necessarily, like, you can be at a point where you reach flow immediately because of prior experience, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
not necessarily that, like, I think you are correct in that you reach flow by, I mean, whatever, this is our definition. We do what we want, right?
Yeah.
Well, like, so in my mind, you reach it by, again, like we said, being at a level that is just where you, like, at your skill, like, you know what we just said and what everyone else is saying, right? But it has to be something that you, like you said, have experience with, right? So that's my point, where it's relative. I think it's easier for players that are not as good to reach it.
Yeah.
And there might be some correlation to the, like, you know, we complain a lot about some games, right? It could be like a skill thing as well, right? Where like pacing in games, right? We talk about that a lot, where it's too slow, right? And it could be related to that, right? Because we get bored, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually do have an idea that I like. I thought of when you were speaking, so maybe this makes more sense. So I think, like, when you look at the people who say, like, okay, it should be at the edge of the player's ability and they should never die, but they should always be close to dying.
Yeah.
I think that is true, but I only think it's true when the player is actually in the flow state. Does that make sense?
Not entirely, say that.
So, like, the way these games are designed is that the player should always be at the edge of their ability. Yeah. But
then,
what they should actually do is that they should, like, when the player is in flow, that is when they should be at the edge of their ability. Before they reach flow, they should struggle, they should lose, they should fail, they should be, like, completely blocked, right? Does that make sense? So, like, you should force the player to enter a flow state to actually, progress in the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I guess my problem with it goes back to what we said in the beginning, which is that I don't think it's not like a good idea to design around it, but because it's actually not that interesting to me, that you stay, like, I think, okay, maybe this is a way to say it, right? To stay in, if the game is trying to keep you in flow all the time, you won't end up in flow.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's just, like, there is nothing, it becomes, what's a good word? I don't have a good word. Like, samey, yes.
Yeah.
Right? It's, oh, I'm at the edge of my ability constantly, right? It's not interesting, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this in the past, where, like, for a game to be interesting, you need the, like, ups and downs, right? You need to, and also that, funny enough, that, like, that in and of itself also creates flow a bit, because it's like, let's say there's a section that's a bit easier, then you're like, fuck yes, I'm doing so good, and then it's the hard part, right? And then it, like, keeps going, like, more, yeah, you know what I mean, like, it's going all over the place, right? And then maybe, like, very varied sections, so, like, some players have a really hard time with this kind of thing, but the other that thing, right? Stuff like that.
Yeah. No, I think we probably agree. I think we just, like, define flow in different ways. Because one thing I would say, which I think is sort of what you said as well in the beginning there, is that, like, a game shouldn't try to keep the player in flow all the time.
Yeah, I don't think sorry to interrupt you, but just one clarification there. Like, I don't, again, as I said in the beginning, I don't think you should consider flow when you design the game. That should be a result of a well implemented game, right? I don't think it's useful to think about, oh, how do I make this feel like, you know, how do I make the player stay influenced? Like, no, just make interesting interactions in the game, and the player will end up in flow if the game is interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is true. I'm trying to one example of a game that I think is really flowy is Super Hexagon. Right, so it's like, for those of you that haven't played it, it's like a game where you dodge stuff in like a circle, and it's like super fast.
It's a hexagon.
It's a hexagon, yes, but yeah, you're going around in a circle, and it's like spinning all the time, and it's like expanding and flashing and doing weird stuff, and it's like distracting you all the time. And like, I think maybe you're right in that you shouldn't explicitly design to like always keep the player in a flow state. What I'm thinking more is like, what am I thinking? It's like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can make a game that is very flowy, right? And it's gonna be good in a sense. And you could argue that, well, if a game is good, it is inherently flowy or whatever. But I don't think that's necessarily true. There are good games that aren't very flowy, like strategy games and stuff like that.
I mean, you could argue there's a bunch of flow in strategy games as well. It's just,
yeah, maybe, but not like the same. Not like if we go back to Super Hexagon, not the Super Hexagon kind of flow, right? Where it's like, because that's why I wanted to bring up that game as an example, right? Because that game, it's like every level is 1 minute long, right? And the levels are super hard. So it's like there are 6 levels, so the game is 6 minutes in total. And I think it took me like 10 hours to beat the game or something. Yeah. So like those levels are hard, especially the later ones. And the thing about that game is that you very, very rarely survive more than a few seconds, right? Yeah. Because you're trying to survive a minute. So it's like most of the time you like restart and then you survive like 5 seconds or something and then you die. And it's like you keep doing that over and over again. And it's like, what do you want to call it? Like, you end up like some sort of robot that's just like spamming the restart button and dying over and over again, right?
Yeah.
But then when you actually succeed, you get into this like flow state, right? It's like every time I succeeded in Super Hexagon, I was in like a complete transcended flow state, or whatever you want to say, right? And I think the reason for that is, as I've been saying, it's like the game is too hard for me, and it like, in order for it not to be too hard, I need to be in a flow state, right? Does that make sense?
Well, it needs to be. You need to progress, otherwise it will break, right? That's sort of the thing. Well, it breaks when you're beyond your limits, right?
Yeah.
I agree, but like the problem is that is, in my opinion, over applied, right? Because like in Super Hexagon, it works obviously, right? It's a great game. But my point is that I think a lot of designers think too much in terms of like, maybe that's not this what I'm bringing up is not necessarily exactly flow, but it's still related to flow, right? It's about the like flow of the game, I guess, right? Yeah. And so like we have talked about in the past that we think, or at least I do, practice modes are like super important in certain kinds of games, right? For example, shoot 'em up games, right?
Yeah.
And those completely break flow, right? Going into practice mode and doing practice. Absolutely. That's completely flow breaking, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like, in my opinion, and a lot of designers actually, from what I've heard, right? Not everyone obviously, but like a lot of people think this way, where it's like, oh, how do I make the like experience through the game, right?
Yeah.
It's like one linear thing, and you just keep playing and you get better, and then you get to the end and then you win, right? And like, I don't think that's important actually, right? It's my point.
Yeah.
Like I think it's better to just make a good game, and then because what happens with these is like they can either not be like certain kinds of difficulties can't be reached because of the structure of the game or whatever.
Yeah.
Or something, right?
Yeah,
whereas if you have practice modes, then you can like go to the like you can have in a shmup, if you have a practice mode or like any other game, right? You can have an absurd wall, right? Enemy like difficulty wise.
Yeah.
Late in the game, because you can just do that for a couple of hours or a lot of hours, and then you go and do the run, right?
Yeah.
But that's very not our favorite term, in fashion, right? Because in fashion is that the game flows through, right? And then you like you try to you go through it very like, again, this is not necessarily flow, but the like you go through the game, you have breaks so the player won't quit, like keeping them addicted, and then on top of that you sprinkle like the keep them in the flow state, right? So it's like just keep going. And my point is that for interesting, like truly interesting experiences or whatever you want to say, right? Like I'm what am I trying to say? Like again, comparing it to other hobbies or whatever, right? They are all like that, right? They're not linear, right? If you want to learn, our favorite example, maybe we should come up with more examples. Playing piano, right?
Yeah.
It's not a linear experience, right? It's like you play the piano and then it's really hard in the beginning, and then it gets a little bit easier, then you feel confident, and then you try something harder, and then you're like discouraged because it got too hard, right? So then you go back a bit, and then you do some practice, and then oh my god, I'm so good now, or maybe not, right? And you keep going through all these like, I don't know what to call it, like thoughts, right? So it becomes a very like emotional experience or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why people are I mean, in general hard games with like Dark Souls, right? A lot of people talk like very, how should I say this? Like they value Dark Souls very highly, right? As an experience, right?
Yeah.
And I think it is partly because of this, because it's like, oh, they start out and they just die all over, or like over and over again, and then they like get to some boss and they just beat that boss immediately, and it's like, yes, I'm the best Dark Souls player ever, and then they get to like the hard parts, like the dual boss or whatever, and it's like they're stuck for hours, right?
Yeah.
And you have all of these you have all of these different emotions and experiences, and that's how you create an interesting experience, in my opinion. Not by like keeping them there, and again, it's not exactly flow, but like flow is on top of this thing, right?
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, it's like in this example where you have like this traditional boring action game that's designed for flow state versus something like a shmup, I would argue that a shmup is like the successful application of flow theory, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Because of those two games, the game that I actually end up being in a flow in is a shmup, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's super difficult, and I like, in general, like if it's a hard game, you at some point you end up in a flow state, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the point I'm trying to make, I guess, because like people who like what do you call it? People who promote flow state or whatever, like say it's good and design games around it, they end up designing boring games. But then the kind of point I'm trying to make is that a lot of people who are good designers, at least from what I've heard, completely dismiss the flow stuff, which I don't think is necessarily fair. I think it's just that the people who talk about flow a lot are really bad at it. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I would argue, as I said, that the actual flow state game of those two is the shmup.
Right.
And so if you are
But it's not designed around it, right?
Yeah, no. Mm-hmm.
Because that would break it, I guess. Yeah, let's continue.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends on how you do it, right? And that's sort of my point, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, sort of saying the same thing like before, I guess.
Yeah.
Right, both of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where it's like, I think that it is something that you reach, right? But not something you should strive to reach, if that makes sense, right? So it's not bad, but it's bad to think about, is my opinion, right?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because I do think there's still like a distinction to make. Like if you look at if we take a shmup as an example again, you do end up in a flow state a lot of times when you play shmups and hard games in general. But I wouldn't say that they are flow games, right? I would say that that's more like, if we want a good example, we would take Super Hexagon, for example. That's a good example of a good flowy or flow statey game, or whatever you want to call it.
I think you can, like, I think the problem is that you can end up in a flowy state in most games.
Yeah.
Depending on your skill level, right? So I think this thing that we're talking about, where like, oh yeah, shmups, they induce it, and like Super Hexagon, is because those games are at more in line with the skill level we are at, let's say, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, if you play, I don't know, Uncharted, are we using that as an example? Yeah, okay, Uncharted.
The most flowy game ever.
Yeah, I mean, I am sure there is someone that reach flow when they're doing the combat in Uncharted, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Although, would you say that they stay there for like the entire game? Because if you're pretty bad at games, I think
it's
after a while,
by the fucking story.
Yeah, right.
And then you get frustrated because you can't keep watching the cutscenes.
Yeah.
Because you die by some stupid section where I don't know.
And I think that's actually very, very funny that you bring it up, because that's something I wanted to bring up too. I think one very important part of flowy games is that they don't break up the game whatsoever, basically. And so, like, Super Hexagon is a good example of this. Like, yeah, it has levels, of course, but like in the level, there's only the gameplay, right? And the entire gameplay is that you're in the flow state or whatever, or you're just failing miserably all the time. But I was playing what's it called? Ghost Runner, the speedrunning game, where you're like a cyberpunk samurai guy, and I played that when it came out. And I remember that was like one of the first speedrun games I played. And if you watched the podcast before, you know that I don't like speedrun games.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of realized that when I played Ghost Runner the first time, that was sort of when I realized that I didn't like them. And I played it again to like get gameplay for this video and whatever. And I was like immediately struck by the fact that there's checkpoints every 2 seconds in that game. So it's like I was struggling a bit with the game, right? Because it's like if you get hit once, you die. You don't have health. You just die if you get hit and stuff like that. Yeah. So I did die over and over again, and so it was like a little bit challenging. But like every time I died, I like basically never lost more than 5 seconds of progress. Yeah. And so what ended up happening was that like I would get to a checkpoint, I would like go up to the guy, I would get shot and die, and then I would restart, and then I would go up to the guy and kill him, but then get shot by another guy, and then respawn again, and then kill the 2 guys, and then it's like, okay, I've killed the 2 guys in this area, now I'll move on. And then I get to the next area, and it's like, okay, now there's 3 guys here, and then the exact same thing happens again, and it's like, you don't enter a flow state doing that, right?
Right, yeah, that's really interesting, because if, let's say the checkpoint is like 5 minutes or something, or like the game in our game of the year thing,
Blood Thief,
where you like redo, or does it have checkpoints?
Oh,
it does have checkpoints.
Yeah,
but it's not like
they are longer. They are
longer, and also yeah, they are longer. But the point is that if they are longer, then you actually get to like you said, if the section is hard at first, then you will actually get some sort of flowy state, right? By the end, if the section is long, right? Because you're gonna learn the first half, and then you're gonna feel like a god when you beat it.
Yeah, and I also think like it takes time to get into flow, like relatively speaking, depending on like how fast paced the game is and stuff.
Yeah.
But like, because I realized that when I played Ghost Runner, it's like I'm never playing in a snippet of more than like 15 seconds of gameplay at a time, and it's like, yeah, of course I'm not gonna get into a flow state like this. Like if the level would have restarted every time I would have died, I would have probably eventually ended up in a flow state, right? Because it's like the level is, I don't know, 5 minutes long or whatever. No, and if you're going fast, probably like a minute or two. But like yeah, so it's like if you're going through the entire level and doing all of the encounters over and over again, at some point you're gonna end up in a flow state, right? And then you're finally gonna get to the end of the level. But if you're like slowly inching forward and like losing 1% of the progress and then gaining 2 and then losing 1% of the progress and then gaining 2 over and over again, you never end up in a flow state, because it's like super jarring and constantly breaking everything up.
Yeah. But that's sort of to my original point. I think that flow, not flow as in flow, like that flow of the game.
Yeah.
Should I call it something else? I don't know. That's like structure, I guess.
Yeah, structure is probably better.
Yeah. That is like the original thing, where I think that's sort of the not misconception, but like the difference, right? So because I think like, maybe I'm wrong here, but it feels like to me that what designers are doing is they're saying what you're saying, where, we want to enter flow, right? So we don't want to disturb their, like, we want to keep them at their, whatever. So you do that structure to keep the game going. But then, like you said, you don't enter real flow. So to compensate for that, you do like, I don't know, like stories and progression systems and stuff, right? So you keep them going. It creates some sort of like, it's not flow, it's something else, right? Where it's like a treadmill or something, right? Where maybe not a treadmill. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? It's like you just like brain dead, keep playing, right?
Yeah.
Because like there is nothing. I guess maybe it is flow, but it's like brain dead flow. It's like you enter this thing where. And I've played games in the past where this happens, where you're what I'm doing is like completely pointless, and I know it, right? And I'm just going forward to like see what's at the end or something, right? And just because there's nothing, the only reason I'm keeping going is because there is literally nothing in my way, right?
Yeah.
If that makes sense, right? Because if there was a tiny bit of any friction, I would just stop, right?
Yeah.
Because the game is so brain dead, right?
Yeah.
But since there is no friction and it keeps giving me like rewards, right? I keep going, if that makes sense,
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I think, in my opinion, that's sort of where you end up if you do the flow thing, right? If you focus on that. And that creates a bad game. And I'm obviously not saying that a flowy game is that, right? I'm saying that if you design a game like that, then you end up there.
Yeah, I do agree. Because I think that's sort of one thing that I also wanted to get at, which is that like, from what I've seen, from games that actually induce flow in me a lot, they tend to be designed in a way where they constantly break flow, like every millisecond, like constantly they break the flow. They have things that break the flow all the time, like Super Hexagon. It's like you never play more than 5 seconds most of the time, because you just keep dying over and over again. And I feel like most games that are flowy end up being designed that way, probably not intentionally, right? They're probably not intentionally going for flow, but it's like it's very interesting because, as you said, most designers who design around flow would say you should not put anything in the way of the player. But I would argue that in order to actually reach flow, you should put a lot of stuff in front of the player and like constantly fuck with them and place stuff in their way and make them lose and whatever. That's like how you actually reach flow, if that makes sense.
It's also funny because there's also a technical reason why flow doesn't work in a lot of games, in my opinion, which we have talked about in the past. So one thing that's really, really good about your example, Super Hexagon, is that you play, when you die, the game says game over, and then you click one button, you're instantly back in, right? It's not even a second, and you're back in, right? And a lot of games, even good games, have terrible structure, like I don't know what to call it, technical structure. I don't know what the good word. We need to talk about this at some point, right? Where we have talked about it a little bit in the past, right? But more in detail, where it's like their engines, and it makes sense, right? I'm not saying it doesn't make sense, but they need to think more about this. Like let's bring up Dark Souls again because we can, right? Dark Souls, when you die, it like reloads the area to reset it, right? Which is garbage because you need to wait for the entire game to load again, right?
Yeah.
But then for some reason they have, like, when they thought about it when you sit at bonfires. So when you sit at bonfires, it just reloads the enemies. So that's really fast.
Yeah.
I think it's super silly how they've done that.
I think I mentioned this in like an episode of the podcast way back. I was playing Emerald Blue, right? The shmup.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
and that game you have to restart every time you die.
Yeah,
the game restarts and you go back to the main menu and you need to like press start and then you need to select which mode and you need to select your character and then you start. And it's like every time you die, which like it's a good game, but like that sort of completely breaks flow, right? Because I'm constantly waiting for the goddamn menus.
It's like even like if you're practicing, it's like
exactly. Even the practice mode is
so I just need to say this just in general because like it's surprising to me because like shmups are in my mind considered like a genre where it's like people actually appreciate skill, right? But most of them have such terrible practice modes, like the like a super common thing in shmups is they have this like warning boss approaching screens, right? Which Emerald is like okay in the game, in the run, it's kind of okay to get like a 5-second break, right? It's not the end of the world, right? In the run, but why the fuck are they putting the practice checkpoint before that screen, right? I need to watch that every time I'm practicing the boss. And why can't I move between the moves of the boss, right? What if I want to do the second half of the boss, right? No, you have to start the boss from the beginning, watch that screen every time. Completely breaks flow or whatever. It's just garbage in general, right? It's not even flow. It's like waste of my time.
Emerald Blue is once again very topical here because the final boss, you can't even practice the last stages. I think it's the last two. You can only practice the first stage, and then the practice mode just says, okay, you're done, and then doesn't let you practice the rest. Which I don't understand why.
Yeah, because like it's actually really funny. Bit of a shmup tangent here, but I want to talk about. I want reasons to talk about shmups because shmups are cool. In general, older shmups are more popular, right? Like arcade games, actual arcade games.
Yeah.
And sure, it's probably a quality thing as well, right? But I think one of the reasons, especially there is really not any indie games that are like there's really few. That people are like interested in general, right? And I think part of that is like because if they're easy, then they're some of the easier ones are more popular, like the Zero Ranger or whatever, right? And it has a bunch of other fancy stuff.
Yeah, it has like meta stuff as well.
Yeah. But like, there's not really like I don't know, like Donpachi or whatever, right? Or Ketsui or something, right? And I think part of that is because like the people that actually do the like 2 walls and go for like the really tryhard people, they they can't be bothered because like the way they play, not all of them obviously, but a lot of them, they you know they make like 50 save states in whatever, like if they're playing on the empty ports or if they're playing in an emulator or whatever, right? And they like have a practice point for like literally every inch of the game, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a hard game, so you need to actually practice the parts. But a lot of modern devs, they're like, no, it breaks my flow experience or whatever, right? No, you can't. Yeah, you can have stage practice, but no, you can't practice that part. That ruins everything. It's like, no, you need, like, if you want to make a serious game, you need to make sure you can practice, right? Otherwise,
well, that's more of a structure thing, right?
Yeah. For sure.
But yeah, I 100% agree. I feel like a lot of designers, because I do think if we go back to like, wow, it's so bad that you call the two things flow here. But if we split it up into flow and structure, right? So flow is like you transcended, you are the Buddha or whatever, and then structure is how the game is structured. I feel like a sort of linear structure doesn't actually works against flow, right? Which I guess is sort of what you were trying to say. But it's like, because to reach flow, I need to like have done this before and struggle with it, right?
Yeah,
it's
because
like
that's how you trigger the thing that you know.
Exactly.
You know, or like you have experience with the thing, so your brain can like autopilot and feel good about like some parts are going automatically, right?
Yeah. And so like flowy games should actually be like designed with a lot of replayability in mind, right?
Yeah.
It's like if we go back to your favorite example, like playing a piano, right? It's like the first time I'm trying to learn something on the piano, I'm gonna struggle a lot. And then like, but as I do it more and more, eventually I will learn to do it, and then I will enter flow, right? And it's like, it's the same with games. Like, because if we go back to the piano again, it's like, you don't learn a song by playing it linearly, right? You kind of, like, I mean, you can, but it's very slow, and it's like,
It's extremely slow.
It's like
also,
you practice
also
at
the
the
piano
hard
is
parts,
actually even more, because you break it down, right? So like you'll practice one hand, and then you'll practice the other hand.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you'll bring the hands together, and then you enter flow, because you're like, fuck yes, my left hand is just playing by itself, and I don't need to think about it. And then you're in flow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But you can't get there if it's like, okay, now you do this hand, now you do, like in order, right? Unless it's like an extremely long game where you get like repeats of whatever you did, right?
Yeah, because like if you were to like read the sheet music and like play it at the same time for the first time, and just trying to play it through once, and then after you've done it the first time and you've like been struggling and doing it really poorly, you were like, okay, now I've played this song, okay, so now I'm done, and then you never play it again. It's like, you're not gonna enter flow. So like, how would that work with video games? It doesn't. You need to replay it and like replay sections and practice and stuff like that in order to actually reach flow.
It made me realize one thing, actually. I think that is also why rehashing is so popular. Because you
what do you mean with
get
rehashing?
a bit of flow. So like, I mean, Dark Souls has a bit of flow, right? Because you have to struggle, right? But my point is that, like genres, right? Like, good words are hard sometimes. Like games that are similar to other games, right? Because you get a bit of flow from the fact that you have experience prior, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like the thing we always talk about, right, is like people don't like clunky games, right? Because what we call, like, in quotation marks, clunky games, right? Games that are different from what people are used to, right? But if because then they struggle immediately, right? So the only way a lot of designers think is to make it easy, right? And then you don't enter flow, and then it's not interesting, and then it's garbage, right? Which is funny. It's probably exactly what happened with like Demon Souls, right? It was too hard, so people it's not too hard, but you get what I'm saying. Like there wasn't any relatable experience. It was too different, right? And so people said it was bad, because that's the only way you can talk about, like, it's either whatever. Not Demon Souls today. My point is that let's say shooters. Okay, I'm sorry, spread out here. Go back to the thing I was trying to say. This is shooters, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think one, like, maybe, like, this is just a thought, that occurred to me that if you play a shooter, right, and you said, okay, the structure is linear, right, and you don't then you don't get flow, right? But if you play 10 shooters, then maybe you get some flow in the later ones, right? I haven't thought about it in that way before, but that would make sense. I mean, maybe you get in the first one as well, but like it makes sense that you would seek out that more because you want it to keep going. Whatever.
I think that's fair. Although shooters is perhaps a bad example because like most shooters are, like at least single player shooters are very easy. So it's like,
I mean, you only say that because there is so much experience to be had, right? Shooters are actually, it's funny because like shooters are, I would argue, one of the genres where like mainstream genres that require the most skill. It's just that they are so like established, right, or whatever. Maybe. Like there is people, the general skill level of shooter players are very high because of that's probably true. Players.
Yeah.
So it's actually like so like you get it, what I'm saying.
Well, I was thinking more from like my own experience. Like there aren't actually a lot of good, like genuinely good single player shooters. At least modern ones. Older ones are good, but modern ones no. Like the only ones I can think of is like Devil Daggers and Hyper Demon, which is made by the same people.
Yeah, I'm not arguing about the quality. I'm just arguing that like the amount of skill required in, like, even like you can laugh at me, but like the hardest difficulty of like Call of Duty or something is a lot higher than a lot of other genres, right?
Yeah, that is true. That's true. Although that's not a flowy experience.
No, that's like you stand behind the cover.
You stand behind cover for 10 seconds.
Auto aim bot. Insta kill. Wait for the red screen to disappear. But I mean, it's not. Skill wise, it's not nothing, right? Yeah, that's my point. Compared to other genres, where it's like some third person genres, especially like not shooting related, that are just completely brain dead, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. I actually, if you'll allow me, I wanted to bring us back to the graph, the always almost die but never actually die graph, which it's or difficulty curve or whatever you want to call it, because there is one more common misconception about it, in my opinion, and that is that so what they are arguing is that you should always make the game like just at the edge of the player's level, difficulty-wise, right? But that makes the incorrect assumption that the player doesn't become better at the game from the game becoming more difficult. Does that make sense? Did I say it in a way that made sense?
I think so. Say that one more time.
So what I'm trying to say is that these people who argue that you should make the game just hard enough are actually wrong, because if you make the game too hard, then the player will learn the game faster and thus catch up to the point where the game is just hard enough, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Sort of.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if you make the game harder, the player becomes better at the game faster. That's sort of my point.
Yes, absolutely. If they keep playing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, if they stop, they won't get better.
And I feel like that's sort of an underrated thing. And I think especially they are overrating... I'm saying this in a wrong way. I'm going to have to turn back a bit. So, like... I feel like it's very important. So, like... If you want the player to actually improve at the game, you have to make it too hard for them, right? It's like, yes, they will improve a little bit if the game is hard enough, but at some point, the player will be good enough to beat the game, and then their like skill, whatever you call it, like their increase in skill or whatever you want to call it, will stagnate, right? Like when the player is skilled enough at the game to beat it without a problem, their skill will stagnate, is kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so this is why I want to like bring it back to this like difficulty graph thing, right? where it's like if you make the game harder and the player keeps playing, as you said, then you can actually make the game quite a bit too hard, and then the player will catch up with the difficulty curve.
Yeah.
That's sort of my point. And when they have caught up with the difficulty curve, they won't get much better. Like, obviously a little bit, because you keep playing the game and you keep learning things and you keep practicing
I guess it depends on the curve, right?
Yeah, but like once you have caught up with the curve, you generally don't get that much better, because like if you're losing, you're gonna keep playing until you're not losing, and then you're not losing anymore, and so you've become good enough. Whereas if you're constantly winning, then you're just gonna keep doing the same thing, right?
Yeah, but one thing to point out there is that a lot of the time you're actually not skilled enough when you beat things, right? You are usually below the curve when you get to the point where you get through something, right?
Especially
you have to do it a lot to be like consistent. Like there is a huge difference, which is also why linear structure sucks, right? Mm-hmm. Or maybe we shouldn't call it linear, because maybe people get confused. But like, it's
like
linear.
checkpoint
like,
games.
Because like the game can definitely be linear. I don't care. Like that's good, right? The game shouldn't, like branching game. I don't care. It's like the game. You play through the game in one direction only. Or no, it doesn't make sense. I think hopefully people understand. Yeah, it's like a shmup is linear, but it's not what we're calling a linear game, right? Mm-hmm.
Like it's a linear, it's experienced linearly, you could call it.
Yeah. What was I saying? Yeah, and like so if you have like run-based games, for example, it's where it's more clear, right? Because you need to actually get more skilled in relation to the difficulty of the game, right? Yeah. That's one of the reasons run-based games is interesting, in my opinion. Like I think more interesting in my opinion. Yeah. Because if you only have to play through it like sequentially, right?
Yeah.
And then you actually don't need to get even close to the skill required to beat the thing. Because getting through something once is not even close to as hard as getting through it consistently. Not even close. It's not even halfway probably, right?
Yeah, I mean... So... I wanted to like bring it back to the Ghost Runner example that I mentioned, right? Because Ghost Runner has so many checkpoints. Yeah. And so, I felt like I never really like learned anything, right? Because I just kept doing the same thing over and over, and eventually it worked. And I actually I want to use this as an excuse to talk about CS, because I like CS so much. Sorry, guys. Which is that, you know, there are a lot of things that you need to become good at in CS. You know, I've talked about before counter-strafing and stuff like that. And so to make an example of what you said, it's like, for those of you that don't know, counter-strafing is this thing in CS where it's like, if you're going to the right and then you let go of the right button and press the left button at the same time very slightly, you will like stop faster because like you're canceling out inertia, and thus you're more accurate faster. And it's really interesting that you bring this up, that you need to do things several times, because like I play quite a bit of CS, and I've known how to counter-strafe for quite a long time, but I still don't succeed with my counter-strafes all of the time. Like I still like most of my counter-strafes are pretty good, but like there are still some times where it's like, oh fuck, I died because I didn't counter-strafe properly. Like I did something wrong or whatever, or like I was caught off guard and I didn't counter-strafe properly or whatever. Yeah. And it's very interesting because like I learned counter-strafing several hundred hours, if not thousands of hours, or 1,000 hours of gameplay ago, right? So I've been playing CS knowing how to counter-strafe for several hundred hours. And I still can't do it perfectly, and it's like if I would have counter-strafed the first time, and then I would have said, okay, now I'm good at CS. I know how to play CS. Now you know. It's like, no, that's not true. It's like I need to be able to do it super consistently all the time, and it's like it's something I still practice, you know, several hundred hours later, because it's like so important to get right, and it's quite hard to get right, or at least like completely consistently.
It's interesting actually, because it goes back to when we talked about run-based games, right? It makes sense that's like games that are very strategy oriented, right? Work better in this sequential. I don't know what we need a word for it. Like the not
the linearly experienced type of
linearly experienced side, right? Because strategy is learned, right, and then you can apply it always. So it's not actually that interesting to redo it.
Yeah.
Like a puzzle game, for example, right? Like a traditional puzzle game, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, I solved the puzzle, now I move on to the next puzzle, right? Because there's no execution element in it, right? It's just you do the puzzle and then you figure it out and then you do the next puzzle, right? Which is not a problem at all, right? I'm just pointing it out, right? Structurally. Whereas with action games, right? There is actually a lot of interesting things you get from having to redo things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even like it's our example, Dark Souls recognizes this, right? Because even the Hollow Knight, right? People complained about Hollow Knight as well, right? Where it's like, oh, I have to redo this part or whatever, and yeah, maybe some of those checkpoints are not that interesting, but like, it's actually interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because if you put the checkpoint right at the end of the boss, like we've talked about this before. First of all, you like remove all the pressure. You can just keep bashing your head against the wall until you break it or whatever. But then I do think it like fucks with flow to like put the checkpoint right before the difficult part.
Yeah, for sure.
Because as we said before, it takes time to enter into flow. And so you kind of need to play a bit beforehand, right, in order to reach it, I guess.
Yeah, you do. But also, it's actually like I hadn't thought about it before our discussion now, but it's actually a perfect way to enter it, right? Like replaying a section naturally creates that. And I hadn't thought about it in that way, right? Because what is happening is you're actually literally at your skills limit, right? Because you're at the section that you can't beat, but it's long, so you like keep at it, right?
Yeah.
But it's just beyond your skills, so like you can, it's interesting actually. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah, that's actually.
But
true.
if it's too short, then you lose that, right?
Yeah.
So it needs to have some length.
Yeah. Yeah, like it reminds me of the swamp area in Hollow Knight Silksong that I've talked about before. Like that's like an intentionally very long and very annoying run back, and it's like it's the most one of the most memorable parts of the games for me. Or of the game for me, sorry. And I think that's part of the reason, right? Because I got so good at doing the run back that like I actually entered the flow into a flow doing it, right? Because it's like, okay, now I jump there and then I dodge that thing and then I jump over that guy because I don't need to kill that guy and I'm wasting my time, and then I move on here and I jump over here and I avoid the stinky water so I don't get my debuff or whatever, and it's like yeah, you're doing the same thing over and over again, but it's like actually interesting. And then the effect of that, as I mentioned the last time I brought this up on the podcast, it's like when I actually get to the boss, I'm like, I have to be super locked in, right? Because if I fail, I need to do all of that over again. And so it's like, okay, now I need to really do this the right way. I think that part is actually especially good because before you reach, or when you reach the boss arena, there's like a normal arena section first and then the boss spawns. So it's like you have a bunch of enemies spawning, and then you kill them, and then after you've done that, the boss spawns. So it's like you're super in the groove or whatever. There is one final thing that I want to bring up about flowy games. That is maybe a misconception, I don't know. And you can see it if you look at like what type of games are talked about when people talk about flowy games. And there seems to be a very strong, what do you call it? Like preference for movement-y games and fast-paced games and stuff like that. And I don't think that's necessarily necessary for flow, I guess.
No, sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
like if I remember correctly, again, this is could be completely made up. But I think again this like study thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was like, you know, people doing whatever, right? It could be
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They like it could be a carpenter or whatever, but it could also be like a programmer or something,
Yeah.
right? Like writing code or something,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't I don't think it was that specifically, but you get what I'm saying. Like it could. The point was it was a task. Like you did
Mm-hmm.
any task that was like just at your skills,
Yeah.
whatever. Like you
Yeah.
could do it, but you had to actually try or whatever.
Yeah. And I think that's interesting because like before the video I did like some research googling around and stuff. And I like googled games with good flow and I went on to like the top 10 list or whatever, and it was so interesting reading the games because the games that were there were like Dying Light and Marvel Spider-Man, the PS4 PS5 games or whatever, and it's like those games I don't like those aren't flowy games. Those
It sounded
games
more
have
like combat flow actually.
yeah, like those games have smooth movement. That's why they like were included, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that list was very.
No, it was obviously bullshit, but like, but like,
Sounds like a
yeah, I think it's
generated list.
yeah,
Maybe.
but yeah, it's like my point is like if you look at something like the Spider-Man games, the movement in those games is not flowy. It's like completely brain dead, right? It's automatic. Like the game literally plays itself. You're not entering a flow state playing that game. You're literally just like spamming X repeatedly or whatever. I don't know what button it is, but like, yeah, it's very interesting because, you know. Yeah, I guess going back to my original point, you don't need like smooth movement and fast-paced stuff or whatever for flow to happen. It's like, in fact, it's maybe even I would argue it's the opposite. It's like if you made a movement-focused game where the movement was very clunky and very slow and very annoying, you would actually reach a flow state faster than if you had a game with really smooth and satisfying movement. In fact, now that I say it, have you heard of Co-op?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like a perfect example of a flowy game. It's like you're like individually controlling your like parts of your legs with the different buttons and stuff, and it's like super hard, and like you can barely even take one step. But then at some point you like get into this like super flow thing and you're like, oh shit, I ran like 5 meters, holy crap,
like
I'm the best ever.
On your toes or something, like trying to stay upright.
And so that's like a perfect example of what I'm trying to say, because that's like a movement-based game that's super clunky and super slow, but it's super flowy as well. Yeah, and then there's like, you know, Spider-Man or like most of the speedrunning games out there where it's like, okay, yeah, you have really fluid movement and you have a dash and you have a jump and you have a whatever, but it's like, yeah, but you never enter flow because the movement is like completely brain dead because it's so powerful, right? I think that's.
I mean, maybe if you're like a actual speedrunner of the
games,
then you probably get there, right?
Yeah, but
because
not if you're like
out of bounds.
Yeah,
stuff
exactly.
And, like you're doing a bunch of crazy shit.
Yeah, but like if you're just playing the game normally, then you don't
especially
really
like you said with the checkpoints and stuff. It's like okay, whatever. It also doesn't make sense like to have checkpoints, you know, because I mean it depends on the game, I guess, but it's like. If there's stages, it's like the stages are like a minute or something.
Yeah.
You don't really need a checkpoint in that stage, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
But it's not fun if I lose.
Yeah, I have to redo it. Yeah, but if you don't get flow.
No. I have to redo it. Yeah. No, you don't want to play the game you bought.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. No, you have to change it so that it's the way I want it. Otherwise, I never fund it.
I'm actually dying here, so I'm not entering flow, right? Because flow was when you never died. Yeah. But I don't have anything more to add. Do you have anything, Edward?
I have something that is unrelated to what we've talked about.
Okay, go ahead.
We asked last week about the Discord thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we made one.
Woohoo!
Whoa!
Yeah. So
yeah,
now
I'll
you
put it in
can
the-
join and tell us we're stupid.
Yeah. Or yeah. Yeah,
Or-
I don't know why. You can say whatever you want. I don't know what.
Yeah. You don't have to tell us we're stupid, but you can.
No, you can tell us something wise as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
put it in the description.
Yeah.
If you want to join. You don't have to join, like we said. If you want to listen when you're on a bike, shout out to that guy from last week. That is totally cool with me.
Well, maybe he's texting and texting and
Don't
biking at
text
the same
and bike at the same
or
time.
like
Don't do
Discording
that.
and
No.
biking at the same time.
No, don't do that. Not a good idea.
No, yeah.
You can have us. You can just listen. It's fine.
Yeah, but if you want to like discuss something, yeah, feel free to join. Because you do write some interesting comment, guys, and we would like to like discuss things more because YouTube comments aren't the best way to do that.
For sure.
But yeah, I guess that's it from us today. Thank you for listening, everyone. Don't forget to like leave a like and a subscribe and all that YouTube stuff, and a comment, of course. And yeah, that's it. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.